If being a victim of emotional incest as you grew up is now influencing your behavior as an adult, then we want to crack that foundation right now. Hang on. Growing up as a child who's a victim of emotional incest, it does form our view in terms of what we think we can accomplish. It impacts our self-worth, our self-esteem. We may have a lot of self-loathing and self-criticism because what we learn from our parent is that we're not quite good enough. The parent that emotionally smothered us, put us on a pedestal, was teaching us that the real I, the real me, the real part of me that means something is not valued by others. What I put on as a facade, how I mirror back to them what they want to see, how I people please to them in sort of a servant way like this. I'm bowing to them. I'm pleasing the parent. When a child is trained that way for many years, then this pleasing, this being the servant, transfers from what we did with our parent when we were younger, that we had to do. It was a coping mechanism. We had to survive, right? We didn't know any better, so we were trained in that way. And oftentimes we carry that into adulthood. We're a chameleon, we're a people pleaser. We think we continue having to bow to others on some level. Well, no, we don't. And for people who aren't able to say, no, we don't, then oftentimes they're caught in victim mentality. And victim mentality is a place where we believe how we were conditioned, because really that's all that was from our parents. It's a form of conditioning, almost brainwashing in a way. But that conditioning doesn't control the essence of who you are. The essence, who you really are behind the facade, is someone who's creative, goal-oriented perhaps, ambitious. You want to challenge yourself, you want to grow, you want to have a voice, you want to be seen, you want to do all these things you couldn't do as a child because of the conditioning. So as you get older, you see through the facade and you realize that how you were conditioned is a bunch of BS. It was done by a very weak parent because they didn't know how to deal with their own adult life and get professional help. So they chose a child to be their mini husband or mini wife so they wouldn't have to look inward and deal with their own crap, right? So the child pays a big price. Well, if you're the child who pays a big price, like I did as well, then you have to challenge yourself as an adult to say, I am leaving those shackles behind. That's being aware that you are not a victim whatsoever. Because a parent tries to mold us a certain way or conditions us or forces you to hear all their adult problems doesn't mean that that has anything, once again, to do with who you are. And you have to see it that way, otherwise you may be stuck in that little boy or girl mode that everything revolves around your parent. Well, when you're an adult, perhaps your parent is dead and gone. You don't want to carry those shackles around, right? I mean, if your parent is 6 feet under and in their grave, why should they have any influence about how you yourself now as an adult is leading your life? So you have to begin to think that you don't want to take on and carry their toxicity. That was their journey in life. That's between them and their God, so to speak. And now you're headed to a place where it's between you and your God. What do you want for you? And you have to really separate yourself out from the parent in that way. So sad you had to have a toxic parent. And what they taught us and showed us and demonstrated to us was so sick in so many ways. The notion that we can't have a real I there, that we shouldn't really have our own strong identity, that we have to be a false people pleaser all the time, and that there's something wrong with us standing strong and having a voice that differs from them, that we can be different from a parent and be rebellious if we want, that we can separate. They didn't want us to really separate. And then attachment issues come in where we're overly attached to the parent. And all these things that happen in that way during childhood, we can't control. Back then, we were a true victim. So during the process of childhood, that is indeed a victim. You're young, you don't know better, you have nothing to compare it to, nobody has your back. If the spouse of the parent who is emotionally smothering you doesn't step in to save you, then you're kind of screwed, right? And that's what emotional incest is. If it's a two-parent household and the spouse of who is smothering you does not step up, then you're a true victim. Because if that other parent did step up, you wouldn't be a victim of emotional incest, right? Somebody would have come in and put the offending parent in place. They could have checked them, right? Leveled the playing field, and then the child would have been emotionally saved. But the whole point of emotional incest is nobody steps in to save us. We're left on our own like a candle in the wind, and at that point we are a victim. The only way to deal with that is you have to challenge yourself, because if you're caught in that mentality, then it's an easy way out from dealing with life. So people sometimes don't realize how when you take on an identity, well, I'm a victim, that it permeates your viewpoint of the future. And we don't want that to happen, because what you do with yourself in your future can be completely unrelated to how you were raised. You're always going to have to catch yourself with your thoughts, challenge yourself on the negative thoughts, challenge yourself in the sense that as a child you don't really have a voice, you don't have one now. All those toxic messages, yes, you do have to challenge those, but being aware that you even have to challenge yourself with this kind of thinking means you're halfway there. Once you have the awareness that you're not trapped into this victim mentality, then you can do anything you want, but you do have to challenge your thinking. And then the second part is after you challenge your thinking and you see what you need to do, what you want to accomplish, what your goals are, you're aware of the thinking and the feelings, you're letting it up, hopefully processing it with a therapist or journaling about it. So you don't want to repress any of this, you want to work with it and let it be there. But notice if you're latching onto it in terms of like, well, this was my childhood, I'm a victim, so I really can't do this. I really can't have a true, authentic relationship with a husband or wife. I can't really connect with anybody. I can't really follow my dreams or goals. You know, I always wanted to be an architect. It's been a life dream. But I'm not going to go to college and study that. Are you joking? I'll never make it through. I always wanted to be in law enforcement. I wanted to be a police officer, but I'm not going to really do that or try to go through training and be a cop because after all, I'm too much of a people pleaser. You know, I'm just not really going to fit in the force. So we talk ourselves out of what we want to do. And at this point, it's not on the parents anymore. It's on you. It's on you being willing to hide and run and finding a safe place to cower away, because the alternative means you would have to deal with these complicated, difficult feelings which come up when we challenge ourselves. So you couldn't be seen as a kid, so you avoid the spotlight. Well, you're interested in a job or a career where you have to be in the spotlight. Well, you're not going to cave to not applying or pursuing that career in front of the spotlight. What you're going to do is work through those feelings and then go apply and do whatever you want to do in life. So what we do is we work with those feelings. We let them up, we notice them, we feel them, and then we realize that we're not going to let that determine our behavior in life. So we have to pull ourselves out of victim mentality, because that's part of what's keeping you there. The notion that because I'm scared of something, because I was conditioned in a certain way, then I surely can't do A, B, or C. Well, yes, you surely can do A, B, or C. But if you want to run from that challenge and hide from life and cower away because, well, I wasn't really given the skills. I mean, after all, I was emotionally smothered and you know, I don't know how to behave around others. Never really heard myself talk much in front of people. So if you start going into that and now you're in your 30s or 40s, then you've latched onto victim mentality. You can do any damn thing you want to do in life. And a therapist definitely has to understand the abuse the child went through for many years as a child. But at the same time, it's a therapist's role to challenge the client to reach their potential, to accomplish in life if they want to accomplish something that they're capable of accomplishing. To not hide away and let life go by because, well, after all, I'm a victim of emotional incest. No, yes, you are a victim of emotional incest, and that does need to be addressed for sure. There's a tremendous impact on one's self-esteem and one's life view and one's attitude about themselves. But that's not something we need to carry our whole life. It's up to you to challenge yourself and do the work that takes you out of your comfort zone so you can really grow. I know for myself in my life, I've had to do that many times. Going back to school and getting my master's degree in my 30s. I ran for city council once knowing I had no real understanding of the political scene the way I should have, but I wanted to challenge myself to grow and to learn and to become an advocate. And so I jumped in and formed a campaign and I ran for city council. I lost, but a lot of it for me was about self-growth. I wanted to challenge myself to see what I was capable of. And also having to give campaign speeches ties into the fact that I was terrified to get up in front of people and talk. And that comes from being a victim of emotional incest, because I always had to be in the background, not really have a voice. I'm just supposed to be the good little boy who listens. Because I was so trained that way, then as I got into high school, teenage years, and so on, I was terrified to get up and have to give a speech in front of people. Because I wasn't used to that. You're not supposed to be looking at me. You're not supposed to be hearing my opinion. And so later in life that I saw that that fear wasn't going to go away until I challenged myself. I didn't want to be a victim anymore. Then I started taking Toastmaster classes. And Toastmasters is a worldwide organization. They have chapters all over where you go and you practice public speaking. It's very supportive, and people attend meetings that are like me, that are terrified, or people go in that are not terrified at all, but they maybe work at a job where they have to give a lot of speeches and they just want to continually brush up. So whatever the motivation is can be different for everybody, but the goal is to excel in public speaking. Well, a lot of people there were like me, terrified to be there, but I had so much respect for them, and I gained respect for myself too, because you're doing what's extremely uncomfortable. You're challenging yourself not to cave to the conditioning from childhood. Okay, my mom tried to rob my voice. Well, I'll be damned if that's going to happen. I'm going to find my voice. So you have to work with this, challenge yourself. It's not always easy, but it's worth it in the long run, because that's how we grow self-esteem. Oftentimes therapists get asked, how do I gain self-esteem? I hear that term all the time. I want to be more secure. I want more self-esteem. Well, do that for me, therapist. Well, it doesn't work that way. How somebody gets self-esteem is by stepping out of their comfort zone and doing what really scares the hell out of them. When they see that they can do it and they've tolerated all the uncomfortable feelings that go along with that, that's how we begin to feel kind of pumped up. We believe in ourselves. We know we're capable of much more than we were taught as a child. And that is how we grow self-esteem. And then we become more secure in many aspects of our life because we've grown our self-esteem. So I've covered a lot here. I hope if you're a victim of emotional incest, but really this can apply to any child who's a victim of abuse. So if you find you're bringing that victimhood into adult life, it's time to challenge yourself. It's time to crack that foundation, and it's time to begin realizing your potential. So please leave me some comments below. Tell me your story. If you have anything you'd like to add, maybe you've been through something similar in your life where you've really challenged yourself, you were scared to death. Please subscribe to my mental health YouTube channel if you like these kind of videos. And until next week, this is Brad Shore signing off from Ask a Shrink.